Hey everyone, welcome back. We're continuing our reading of the Federalist Papers. What's interesting about this is that we've been on the same topic of the insufficiency of the Confederation to preserve the Union, and we're in Alexander Hamilton's essay. Let's continue with the same subjects. Alright. In those emergencies of a nation in which the goodness or badness, the weakness or strength of its government is of the greatest importance, there is commonly a necessity for action. Alright? So, well, yes, if it's an emergency, that would mean you need necessity. The public business must in some way or other go forward. If a pernicious minority can control the opinion of a majority respecting the best mode of conducting it. Now, notice this. A pertinacious minority, so a few people controlling the opinion of the majority. You would say the social media today, trying to silence everyone who doesn't agree with their personal workers' opinions, is something very important right now, especially when so many people are getting deplatformed and getting their right to express themselves in the public digital square. That's definitely a topic. Now, the public business must go forward in a mode of an emergency for a nation. Look at today when the supply chains are shutting down and entire industries are wiped out and businesses are dropping like flies and people are filing for bankruptcy, unemployment, divorce, just straight disaster. Everything got shut down. It was not a good way to go forward, and now people are realizing their mistakes. So he has a point, doesn't he? The majority, in order that something may be done, must conform to the views of the minority, and thus the sense of the smaller number will overrule that of the greater and give a tone to the national proceedings. Yeah, it does. If something's overruling and pushing it on people, it's definitely going to be in your face. Hence, tedious delays, continual negotiation, and intrigue. Notice this. So if your government is stuck in tedious delays, and they're always negotiating, never really getting anything done, and there's too much intrigue, it's going to halt you up. Contemptible compromises where it's just, man, that's what the deal you went for, that's what we got, that's a contemptible compromise of the public good, and yet in such a system, it is even happy when such compromises can take place. For upon some occasions, things will not admit of accommodation. Well, yeah, some things you just can't accommodate for, right? And then the measures of government must be injuriously suspended or fatally defeated. So either suspended or defeated, did you get that? It is often by impracticability of obtaining the concurrence of the necessary number of votes. Concurrence of the necessary number of votes. So, in order, it's impractical if there's tedious delays, continuing negotiation, and then on top of that, you have the lack of capacity to get the votes, well, yeah, it would be troublesome, wouldn't it? Kept in a state of inaction, stagnation, sort of like with the stimulus checks and making sure they get to the right people. Its situation must always savor of weakness, sometimes border upon anarchy. See, notice that. We have the most anarchy now because we shut everything down. People are upset because they've been getting deplatformed because a small, whiny, woke, outrage mob has allies in certain positions that can force their views and skew and artificially turn on and turn off everyone else's opinion in order to shape who they favor is a problem. So what he's saying can apply to very many contexts. It is not difficult to discover that a principle of this kind gives greater scope to foreign corruption. So you'll be more susceptible to foreign corruption if your minority is trying to suppress, like how we could put it, to overly override and bulldoze the majority. And if you're constantly in this stagnation and you're not moving along and the compromises are contemptible, a foreign government is going to see that and try to undermine you, he's contending. As well as to domestic faction. Yeah, so the way a domestic faction would rise up is they're a faction with the minority, freaking out, trying to push their views on everyone else, regardless of the majority view, and they wouldn't get the number of votes they wanted. It would be impractical, but they're going to have their intrigue at the expense of the public good, because the public would have been the majority, and if they're the minority, they're part of the public, but not the public due to percentages, right? Then that which permits the sense of majority to decide, though the contrary of this has presumed. The mistake has proceeded from not attending with due care to the mischiefs that may be occasioned by obstructing. Look at that. So, obstruction being occasioned with mischiefs. Yes. I mean, usually when one is obstructing, they intend some type of malice there, some type of tit for tat political play. The progress of government at certain critical seasons, when the concurrence of a large number is required by the Constitution to doing of any national act, we are apt to rest satisfied that all is safe. Aha! So, the large number of people needs to be required, but it also has to be paired with the Constitution. So if it goes against the Constitution, and it's not a large number of the majority public who want it, it's therefore vice, and it's a domestic faction, and it is funded by foreign corruption. Did you get that? Did you get that? So if a group is rising up and they're going against the Constitution, they're a voracious minority, they cause more of a problem. And they're making the tone quite hammered because they are not doing their best, as he put it, with tedious delays, continual negotiation, and other factors. Now he says we are apt to rest satisfied that all is safe because nothing improper will likely to be done. So if you have a group of politicians who understand the number that is required of votes in the Constitution and they're loyal to it, the people will be rest assured that not too much damage can get done because there's some blockage there. But if you have a faction and a foreign corruption enterprise, it can cause issues, he's contending. But we forget how much good may be prevented and how much ill may be produced. Wow, what good can be prevented, what ill can be produced, by the power of hindering that which is necessary from being done. Well, the Nancy Pelosi doing her pork barrel spending and putting a bunch of unnecessary foreign aid to the stimulus package that prevented Americans from getting a direct stimulus payment, that was brutal. That was definitely where both of them are hindering what's good for the public. It's quite sad. It's very corrupt. And of keeping affairs in the same unfavorable posture in which they may happen to stand at particular periods. Yeah, because if they keep them in an unfavorable posture, they can use that to their political advantage. Suppose, for instance, we are engaged in a war in conjunction with one foreign nation against another. Suppose the necessity of our situation demanded peace, and the interests or ambition of our ally led him to seek the prosecution of the war. So peace being the factor here where there's two nations going at it, with the views that mighty justify us in making separate terms. So both sides having their own separate terms they want to negotiate. Yes, okay, I follow. In such a state of things, this ally of ours would evidently find it much easier, by his bribes and intrigues, to tie up the hands of government from making peace. So an outside alliance really muddying the waters with bribes and intrigues. I like how he said tying up the hands because he called it tedious delays, remember? Where 2/3 of all votes were requisite to that object, then where a simple majority would suffice. So, if a majority would suffice, it'd be faster, he's contending, but if you have a very pesky minority that's holding up something that is going to be for the peace, that'll make that peace seeker more susceptible to bribes and intrigues, because the hands of the government are tied by the minority at the expense of the public good. He's such a great writer, Alexander Hamilton.